Hello and welcome to today's PowerVug technical webinar. This is Jyoti Dodia and I'm very pleased to welcome Wang Yun to today's session, to deliver today's session. And today is the 100th session in the series, so a big moment in the technical webinar series. And Wang is going to be telling us how to automate IBM I with Ansible. And Wang is the business architect of IBM I development team, and he focuses on systems management and cloud management for IBM I. So without further ado, over to you, Wang.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. As introduced, my name is Wang Yun, and right now I'm working as business architect located in Beijing, China. I am very I'm very proud today that I can be the 100 session. So it's very lucky for me. Today my topic is automated system management with Ansible. Ansible recently is very popular, and from early 2020 this year, we started to invest more on automation solutions for IBM I platform. And for throughout this year until now, we have released 2 major versions of Ansible for I collections to deeply support this platform. In the future, in the next couple of months or next year, we will still have more things to be delivered for this Ansible support. Then let me introduce these capabilities now of what we have today. So this is the agenda. I will start with introducing Ansible and our enablement for IBM I, and then end up with some simple examples, and then extend to some real customer cases that I have engaged with. So let's talk about Ansible first. In today's world, improving efficiency and optimized process are very important to our customers in different industries. The IT infrastructures supporting your businesses require great framework to drive automations against the different platforms, devices, and applications. Great automation tools not only can help you to improve the efficiency to those works that are repeated every day, day to day, but also can orchestrate those tasks rapidly and adjust dynamically for specific missions. And furthermore, operation errors can also be avoided a lot with automation tools, which improves the quality of the service as well. The Ansible is just the right tool and platform to make your automation journey easier. Generally speaking, you can automate many things for your IT environment by Ansible. For example, configuring your systems and networks, deploy the applications, provisioning your virtual machines, and managing your securities, and so on. Many steps can be done by Ansible automations. It can help on your automation either on-prem in your data center or in the cloud. Ansible engine drives automation with its open source architecture and mostly leverages Python and YAML languages for task executions. One of my favorite things is that there's no agent needed on the system managed by Ansible. You don't need to open new ports for connections if you already have the SSH services on your system. I know that this is very important to many of our IBM I customers, who are really hesitant to open new ports or running extra daemons for security or stability and performance reasons. Ansible is also very flexible, meaning that everyone can customize your own YAML script, which is called Playbook, to run the automation tasks. And also from a scalability perspective, Ansible can actually scale a lot. It could manage a lot of systems and devices. If you are new to Ansible, you don't have Ansible already in your shop, you could go to the quick start link provided on this page for more information. Here, I will introduce some terminologies of Ansible. The system where Ansible engine runs is called a control node, which is normally a Linux server. Recently, IBM team, open source team does a great work to support running IBM as a control node as well, which I will introduce later. But from Red Hat perspective, the Red Hat enterprise support for Ansible engine is based on a Linux server. The systems or devices managed by control node are called endpoints or managed node. When we say Ansible supports IBM I in this session, the most part means that IBM I can be managed as endpoint or as managed system. Ansible engine drives the tasks, which are a series of actions executed by modules onto the selected endpoints configured in the inventory. The modules and the playbooks are the key pieces to support different endpoints, and they are used to run the tasks. From IBM perspective, we provide different modules and playbooks to drive the OS automations. There are a lot of modules that are out of box when you install Ansible engine, and some of them can be leveraged to run tasks under pace of IBM I, but those out of box modules are not developed or implemented by us, and their main purpose is not for IBM I platform management or automation. If you want to run native IBM I tasks, you need to install IBM I modules and playbooks separately, which I will introduce later. If you are wondering what is a playbook or what is the YAML file, here is an example. So the playbook is written in YAML file, and it contains a series of tasks executed by modules. Although single module can be executed interactively in the command line, but normally you need to use playbook to complete your complex tasks for the most of the cases. This picture shows that on this chart highlights 3 tasks executed by IBM I modules. So you can see there is IBM I submit job module and also IBM I job module. These modules can all drive a specific native IBM I task. As you can see from the playbook, it is not hard to read and understand what we submitted. Because this is a human readable kind of like playbook. And so in this playbook, we try to submit 2 jobs and try to look up the status of the jobs under certain user profile. So this is just a simple example for you to understand what a Ansible playbook or Ansible script looks like. If you want to have easy to use UI and dashboard, as well as REST APIs to manage your Ansible tasks, you should consider to use Ansible Tower. Ansible Tower can help you better understand the overview of automation status and the management of the task running, playbooks, inventories, etc. So this GUI interface or REST API can help your automation management a lot easier. It provides extra benefits such as scheduling of your Ansible jobs or sending integrated notifications for the job status, user authority controls, orchestrating playbooks into workflows, etc. It can be scaled to a cluster, which can make your automation architecture to scale up to manage up to like 200K nodes. What is more, Ansible Tower now is available as a container service in Red Hat OpenShift. Ansible Tower is the commercial product, but also it provides open source version, which is called AWX, for you to have a try and learn. Now let's talk about Ansible for IBM support. Before going into the details, I will play a video first.
And while Wang Yun's getting that ready, just a reminder that you can ask questions or make comments via the chat window, and we'll take some of those questions as we go and some at the end. Thank you.
Okay, as you can see from the video, this is actually a marketing video, and this Ansible implementation is not only for IBM, but also for Power system families. So from the video, you can see that we support, we have Power VC there, we have AIX there, and Power Linux as well as IBM. I have a longer video for IBM platform specifically, and this is just a tailored one. The development team has spent a lot of effort to support Ansible for IBM throughout this year. This is, as I mentioned, this is not only IBM team does this support. This is under Power Systems or even IBM Systems umbrella to provide this strategic automation architecture for ZOS, AIX, IBM, and Linux. With the support of these systems, you could build your enhanced automation strategy on top of Ansible for your on-prem or cloud environment. By taking advantage of modules and playbooks, the customers can have the same experience of managing IBM systems as other types of platforms. When I talk to some of the customers about Ansible, one of the interesting things I noticed was that some customers already have Ansible skills in their shops for other types of platforms, and they want to leverage such existing skills to manage their IBM systems. Their experience could be very useful here because the way to use Ansible to manage IBM systems is just the same. It's just like managing other type of the systems in the open world, for example. Their operation and playbook development skills can be directly reused. And also, furthermore, some best practices that are commonly used in the world can be applied to IBM system management as well. Was there a question?
No, it's okay. I have muted all lines. Just a bit of background noise.
Okay. So here are some common use cases for Ansible for IBM. From IBM administrator perspective, there are a lot of things that can be automated. These tasks can be the works that are repeated every day, and they also could be something you want to apply to multiple systems. Automation is not only for enhancing your efficiency, but also avoiding from making mistakes. Some of the use cases can involve very complex steps, and they are all Ansible opportunities. For example, for large customers, managing the PTFs and PTF group levels can be a very complex work because there are a lot of systems in many of our large customers. If you have multiple systems, this is very complex to manage from the patch management or fixed management perspective. And also administrators also need to watch the latest fixes from IBM and plan different group PTFs to be applied to different types of systems. And also testing systems may always have newer level of the groups than production systems. Or even more, if some PTFs are removed from systems for different reasons, checking and packing such activities can be a nightmare in some cases. So figuring out such problems and provide the building blocks to automate this PTF process is one of our goals for Ansible for IBM support. And also IBM customers and ISVs also cares about application deployment very much. With the reality that applications are written in both native RPG, COBOL, and also, all kind of those modern open source languages, supporting both types of applications deployment is highly needed as well. So the common tasks that Ansible is good at, such as provisioning IBM virtual machines, security management, they are all required by our customers, IBM customers as well. I will introduce some of the real customer cases later in this session. One more is from the development team perspective. I just want to share one thing, which is a continuous delivery. There are several steps involved in development cycle, like environment preparation, build, testing, etc. Automating any one of these steps can make developer and testers' lives more easier. And especially for some cloud and Ansible integrations, such practice is more important as well. And for IBM customers, MSPs or CSPs, deploying IBM virtual machine in the cloud is just the first step. This first step can be kicked off by Ansible, but more importantly, the post work after the VM deployment is essential. So when people are considering moving your workload from on-prem to cloud environment, automation is very critical for your movement. So there are great opportunities for IBM cloud automation with the integration of Ansible and cloud solution as well there.
Wang Yun, there's a few questions. Could we take them now, please?
Yeah.
So there's a question about Python versions. So is there a matrix table? Which version of Python should be deployed on which version of IBM I?
Yeah. So in today's, I don't have a metric in today's session. However, I can answer this question directly. So we support 7.2 and above. For the latest version of Ansible collections, we only support Python 3. So Python 3 need to be applied on the target systems of IBM. Yeah.
Thank you. And then there is a question about the administration runtime expert, the ARE product in IBM I. Can you compare or contrast IBM I support with Ansible to ARE?
Oh, okay.
There is some overlap, or looks to be some overlap. How do I decide?
Okay. Okay. So I actually didn't have such conversations with Tim Rowe because, as you know, ARE is Tim Rowe's baby, right? So, but however, I do have my opinions on this. So, firstly, Ansible is known in the market, so it's open source, and so it's very popular in the IT industry. However, for ARE, the ARE also can manage different systems and multiple systems. However, it is just for IBM I. This is the first thing. So if you have already, so many of our customer case was that, they already have Ansible or Ansible Tower in their shops, and they want to leverage those Ansible tools to manage not only their open platforms, but also IBM I. So this is the first opportunity for them. And secondly, for ARE, you need to write ARE templates for your specific tasks. Comparing to the ARE templates, the Ansible script is a lot more easier to read and to write. So from MSP, from a ISV perspective, writing Ansible script is a lot of more efficient than writing some ARE templates to drive automations. And also there are a lot of things that you can leverage already out there in the market. So from us, we actually invest more modules and functions that can drive the automation tasks, which currently we cover more scenarios, and those scenarios are all open sourced out there. I'm not saying that if you are using ARE, the benefit of ARE, or the primary goal for ARE is to check and to set your the configurations onto your systems. ARE also does something like PTF management and apply, but their use case is a little bit different from us, from Ansible, I'll say. So the PTF management, for example, I'll introduce that later in this presentation.
Okay, and one last one for the time being. Is Ansible, will Ansible for IBM I replace automation tool WWTS, Worldwide Toolset Monitoring and Systems Management?
Oh, from the strategy perspective, Ansible is just a newborn tool for you to leverage for automations. So for your existing tools, the inventing or supporting of this new Ansible tool does not mean we will end anything of other products for automations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh. Please continue. We'll go to next page. So several weeks before this session, Red Hat had hosted an Ansible webinar of Ansible for AIX and IBM I. So I just want to show some survey results from that meeting. You could get an idea of what are the top requirements for AIX and IBM I platforms. This survey may not represent 100% of your requirements, but I believe there should be a lot of similarity there. During the development of Ansible support for IBM I, we actually followed design thinking and agile process. Some customers were involved in very early stage to help us on understanding the use cases, arranging priorities, and so on. IBM I has the strongest user community, and every IBM I customer's use cases and requirements are very valuable to us. I also have some similar questions for you, and if you can type the answers in the chat window. For example, how many of you, or are you familiar with Ansible? So this is the first question. So if you want to do the answer, you can type a like a question 1, Q1, and then with the answer. And my second question is that have you heard of IBM I support, or have you used IBM I support for Ansible? So if you can answer with question 2 and your answer. And my last question is, what is the primary task that you want to do with Ansible? If you want to use Ansible, what's the primary automation task that you want to achieve? Like configuration management, security automation, application deployment, orchestration, cloud provisioning, etc. So just type 3 and the answer. And thanks very much for answering those questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of participation, so thanks everyone for doing that. There was a question about support actually. Do customers need to have a separate IBM support contract to get support for Ansible?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So the formal way is that, from support perspective, we recommend the users go to Red Hat to be a Red Hat subscribed user to get, enterprise support for IBM. However, we cannot prevent, because this is open source, right? We cannot prevent you from opening issues directly in our open source community. But we will, if you have problems and issues and submit those issues in the community, we will also answer those questions or problems, but we will not guarantee the quality of service over there. So if you want to have the enterprise support, you need to go to Red Hat to subscribe this Ansible support. And also, then Red Hat team, they will communicate with our support team to opening issues or tickets to the development team as formal process.
Great, thank you. Let's carry on.
Yeah. Now let's take a look at the roadmap of Ansible for IBM support a little bit. By the way, as usual, all the statements for future directions in this page are subject to change or withdraw without notice and represent goals and objectives only. We had our first release in June this year, and we followed up with another quick release in September. The deliveries at current focus on enabling IBM to be managed by Ansible. I call this building blocks creation stage. We have built up 50 plus modules for now you to execute IBM tasks through Ansible natively or under pace. Right now, many of your IBM automation tasks should be able to run by Ansible. You should be ready to go as of today with Ansible for your automation work. After the September release, we will focus more on use cases based deliveries. The purpose here is that we get a lot of requirement from the customers already that we see we saw some common use cases there, and we want to have the user to get those use cases implemented in an easier way. And also we want to use this use cases based playbooks or solutions as examples for the user to make sure that you can be quicker to get along with Ansible. Except for releasing building blocks for single task, we will provide more items for specific scenarios in the format of playbooks, as I mentioned. These playbooks can be reused separately to fit your use case, or you can orchestrate them for different workflows. And of course, these playbooks are open source so that you could also modify them to map to your requirements. We have already started this work, and the first one, is fixed management for the first use case, which I will explain later. As you can see from the chart, in the future, we will have more new releases covering different aspects of your automation works. Again, your inputs and use cases are highly welcomed so that we could build up more use cases framework for common usages in the future. What are available today? From the picture shown on this, the yellow parts are where IBMI supports are. Other than the IBMI modules and playbooks we have released, there are some Ansible core modules that can be used as well. As I answered the question, so the Python 3 and a couple of RPMs need to be installed on the endpoint IBMI systems in order to run the modules. You know, fortunately, we provide automation script as playbook to help you to install those RPMs and dependencies. One interesting thing to note is that, you know, as I mentioned, Jesse's team, open source team, recently they ported Ansible engine onto IBMI system interface. This means that you could not only have IBMI to be as endpoint, but also use it as control node. You can have IBMI as control node to run Ansible engine. From this month, when we do our test cases or testings against the Ansible modules, we actually run those test cases on both Linux Ansible engine and the Ansible engine on IBMI. You know, the running Ansible engine on IBMI right now is not officially supported by Red Hat. As I mentioned, if you want to have the enterprise support by Red Hat, you know, you need to have the Ansible engine or Ansible Tower running on Linux right now. But you know, I still think running this Ansible engine on IBMI could be beneficial. And Jess's team, actually, they have the open source kind of enterprise support from IBMI team perspective. So if you want to run the Ansible engine on IBMI, probably you want to contact Jess's team for further information of how they can support for your enterprise needs. Again, if you want to have the official support from Red Hat, you know, the Ansible engine right now needs to be on Linux. As of today, the Linux should be the x86 Linux, although we are under discussion of whether, you know, some of the customers actually asking whether, you know, we can support the Linux on Power for Ansible engine, but as of for today, we are still, you know, you cannot, the Power Linux is not officially supported by Red Hat right now. My team also plan to start running, as I mentioned, running the different test cases and also the use cases kicking off from the Ansible engine AI. As I mentioned, we have over 50 modules and a couple of playbooks available. And, you know, we also have an official name of Ansible content for IBM Power System, IBMI. You have different ways to download this support. You could download the IBMI packages through Ansible Galaxy or Automation Hub, which are the online shopping store for Ansible packages. You also could go to our GitHub repository and build your own packages from the latest code. As I mentioned previously, other than the modules we've delivered, you also can leverage some of the Ansible core modules or OpenStack modules for your IBMI operations. I have listed several useful links here. I suggest you start with the documentation link and try Ansible for IBMI from setting up the environment first. We also provide some automation playbooks for you to do easy environment preparation, as I mentioned, like install the dependencies, Python 3, RPMs, etc. So I have listed most of the IBMI modules here in this page, just to give you an idea on what we have delivered so far. I grouped them into categories for you to better understand the functions. One group I suggested you start with is the command support group. So there's in the middle of this page, you can see the command support group. So from this group, the modules provide the functions to run CL commands, CL retrieve commands, SQL statements, and so on. So you can directly run those modules in very short time for your first practice. I believe you can, find a very simple case for you to try the Ansible modules for I. And also here.
Could I just interrupt briefly? I just wanted to remind our participants that I will be posting the slide deck along with the replay later, so you don't need to worry about capturing any of the things that are on the screen. You will get a copy of the slides. There's a few more questions that if I could just take a moment to ask those. So will core module Ansible Facts or Ansible Package Facts be on the roadmap?
Yeah, that's the very good question. Actually, it is. Actually, for Ansible for gathering facts, we have already submitted the PRs to the community. We are trying to. We have communications with Red Hat team to proceed that PR request. Because the gathering facts is actually not controlled by us. It's actually controlled by Red Hat team, so it normally takes time if we want to do the gathering facts thing. But at the same time, we can have our own IBM gathering facts, which is also under our roadmap as well. So that user can point to a IBM specific gathering facts module or function to have the facts gathered.
Okay. There is another question. This is a question that's can Ansible act as an automation bridge to monitor and report AIX, VIOS, or SAN devices and report them to IBM I for alerting reasons?
I think the answer should be yes. I can right now what I can say is that AIX team and the VIOS team also are very busy with implementing new modules to support the platform. And so there are a bunch of stuff that you can do, and also from the Ansible core module perspective, there are a set of core modules that can be executed on AIX as well as VLS, I believe. So you can use those modules to gather some of the data, and also and of course, because Ansible itself has its alerting capability, so that if you so that the result can be alerted, and you can put those alerts and leverage IBM modules to put those alerts into a database table or into some message queues, etc. Those things can be done, but at the same time, probably the playbooks could be you need to implement the playbook or script yourself to achieve that goal for now. But I can take this question offline, or you can directly contact me through the email. We can discuss the details so that we can figure out if there's any common use case common use cases there, so that we can help. I cannot speak for SAN or storage team. So DSAK or V7000, if you want to gather the data directly from the console of the storage boxes, then I don't have an answer for now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this page shows, last page showed the IBM modules that we have implemented for IBM platform. And this page are some Ansible core modules, those out-of-box modules, which are not developed by our team, but they can be used or leveraged for your IBM tasks as well. Some of them controls the workflow inside your playbook, and some of them can run under pace. So your pace tasks can leverage these modules for some purpose. My team right now did some sanity tests against these modules, and I believe you could try them as well for your automation tasks. As I mentioned in the previous page, you could go to Ansible Galaxy or Automation Hub to download and install IBM packages. Ansible Galaxy refers to the Galaxy website shown on the left of the page, where the users can download and share Ansible collections of modules and roles. The Galaxy website provides commands to install the packages and links to the resources. Ansible Automation Hub, shown in the right part of the page, is the official location to discover and download supported collections included as part of the Ansible Automation Platform subscription. As I mentioned, if you want to get the official support or enterprise support of Ansible and IBM modules, you actually need to subscribe from Red Hat. And after you subscribe that, you will have the access to Ansible Automation Platform and Automation Hub. IBM packages, so as to other power system packages, are all available there as certified and trusted content in the Automation Hub. You could get official support from Red Hat, as I mentioned. So the Red Hat support team and the IBM support team will work together to get your ticket done for specific problems. Here I will play another video. So this is the Ansible Galaxy's website I mentioned. You can do a simple search and you can see we have a power_IBM collections over there. So on this shopping window, here you can have the Ansible installation commands. You actually can just use a very simple commands to install IBM collections. And there are some contents in the descriptions so that you can navigate of what we have done and deliver to support IBM platform. And furthermore, we have some links here. We have links to the GitHub repositories as well as a documentation website that can help you to get started with the Ansible modules and collections. So you can navigate to the documentation website and do the installations, follow the instructions, and also go to the GitHub website. So if you want to get the latest code of IBM modules, roles, or playbooks, you could directly go to our GitHub repository. If you open up this link on the page, you could see that we have very frequent updates to this GitHub repository. The default branch of the repository is the development branch. It contains the latest code, which may or may not already be released as packages into Galaxy or Automation Hub. For each release, we have separate branch for you to navigate. Except for modules and playbooks, we also release the examples and test cases into this repository. Every module has its corresponding test case in the test directory, where you could treat them as examples. From the last release in September, we have a new directory called use cases, where we put some integrated use cases samples there. You could build and install your own Ansible packages from this repository, and the steps can be found in our documentation website. And here I also prepared another video for you. So as you can see, this is the GitHub repository in the public GitHub. We have several, we have the project definition and description here, several major links. So one is the playbooks. So inside these playbooks, we provided a lot of good examples for you here so that you can know that how to write IBM playbook. So as you can see, we have several good samples there for the playbooks. And also, we all the plugins as modules in the playbook, as modules and roles are in the specific folder. We have multiple roles and multiple modules for different functionality. And also, the test directory is very good for you to get started for each modules or playbooks. So for each module, we have corresponding test cases. So those test cases are written in YAML and playbooks as well, so that you can see, oh, for each module, if you want to leverage those modules, the test folder is for you to understand how to write, Ansible playbooks based on the specific module. And we also have this use case directory, so that right now we have two use case directory. One is the security management directory, and another one is fixed management. We haven't put everything into these two directories right now, but we will enhance these directories in recently, so that the directories will have the solution based playbooks for you to leverage for specific purpose. So okay, stop this one.
Couple more questions, Wang Yun, if I may. So can Ansible leverage the CLI for HMCs and other interfaces like ASME or LPM automation tool to automate tasks?
I'll say we have discussions, and right now we don't have a direct way for you to control HMC, but we are under discussion of that. I'll see for now. So
okay, watch this space, I think is the answer then.
Yes, watch this.
Great. And then does Ansible contain some modules for BRMS software, backup and recovery, backup status report, for example, and job scheduler, so jobs report status, for example?
Yeah, so for job status we actually have one module for you to get the specific status of a specific job, or get the job status under a specific user. We have that module. Right now, we don't have a module for BRMS specifically. However, the playbooks can be written against it's quite depends on what is your use case, because we have the CL command module which support display and display commands, and as well as other types of CL commands. So if you, for example, if you have your tasks being run, and output those tasks into a file or into some physical file, database file, then you can retrieve those status by Ansible from the database file. I would like to, because right now, as I mentioned, we would like to know more use cases for a specific product. As you can see from the roadmap page, the product management or application management is one of the area that we want to invest in the future. So BRMS, I actually heard of this I actually heard of BRMS requirements several times recently. So if you can send me an email and talk to me, what kind of use case you want to achieve, and we can start from there.
Great. And then one final one for now. Does SQL module support use IBM services, or does it make use of IBM services?
Okay, so two things. The first thing is that sure, the SQL module can run SQL services. So there are several types of SQL services, but most of the SQL services are queries. So you select from different views or tables or something. So that's a query statement or select statement. So that is supported for sure. And also there are some SQL services are represented by SQL procedures, store procedures, or even functions, table functions. So for those, the SQL modules can also support those kind of queries, but there are a few cases that right now we are doing the enhancement. But for most of the cases, it should be okay to leverage the SQL module to run IBM services. So this is the one thing. Secondly, in the short future, we actually will provide some, because this is a good idea because everyone loves SQL services. So SQL services examples or example bundles will be provided in the future as well. So just like the ACS tool, right? So ACS tool actually provided a bunch of great examples for you to manage IBM services. We will do the similar thing, and we probably will steal some of their examples and put them directly into some playbook examples for you to do the quick reference.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on, and we'll take more questions a bit later on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. The next one is the recent news. So Jesse asked me to put this page here. So just mention this again. So IBM right now can be the Ansible control node. So you can install the Ansible engine on IBM as well. So you do the yum install Ansible or use ACS to install that. So just FYI. So now I will give some examples. So the first one is very simple. So we execute IBM CL command module interactively. So when you execute the Ansible commands, you need to specify which endpoints you want to select to run the task. In our case here, IBM is the group of endpoint system. By default, Ansible will go to default inventory file location to see what endpoint systems are defined for group IBM. If nothing is found, you need to specify an inventory file location explicitly as shown in bullet 3 with /i option. As you can see from the picture on the chart, the inventory file contains the system's list for a group and also several variables you want to use during Ansible task executions. The Ansible Python interpreter variable is very important here because the default installation location of Python on IBM is not recognized by Ansible by default. And you need to tell Ansible where to find Python. You also need to define which module you need to complete the task. The module we use here is the IBM_CL_command module under power IBM collections in IBM namespace. So this full name needs to be specified after the /m option. We also need to provide parameter values to this module. And in our case here, we input create a library CL commands as the input of the parameter CMD. So I can show you a quick demo here. So in order to prove that this example actually works, so I just do the copy and paste of this command line to my Mac console command line, and I just change the path of the inventory file to point to my local downloaded inventory file location. So when I execute this task, underneath it actually goes set up the connection from Beijing to a system in Rochester. So the connection itself is a little bit slow here, but as you can see after the execution, there are several, the task has been completed here, and it complains about library C1 has already exist. So because we are trying to create a library named C1, now we delete that library and execute this command again. One thing interesting is that this interactive capability are leveraged by our internal developers a lot recently, because for some tasks they no longer need to log on to the green screen, and they just need to sit on their Mac terminal and do the operations. So we create a library C1 successfully, and then we delete that library again. So this is simple, and we have a -VV option which will show you the detailed information of the Ansible executions, like the connection being set up and what kind of things are sent over to your IBM systems, what kind of user are used, etc. So if you want to do the debug of the Ansible tasks, you can use that -VVV option. So this is the screenshot. So as we play the demo, so we just skip this one. And the next one is run a Ansible playbook with IBM modules. So this time you need to use Ansible playbook command to run Ansible script. Instead of passing the inventory and collection name in the command line, you need to specify them in the playbook. As you can see from the left picture, IBM.power IBM collections and the inventory name of IBM are defined in the playbook. This playbook runs several tasks, and they all use the same module, which is IBM CL command module. The playbook tries to create a library, create a library named Ansible I twice, and the second time of the execution expects the message of duplicate creation of the library, and the library will be deleted in the end. So just to show you, I also prepared a little demo here. And do the copy and paste again. So we will take a look at what's inside of this playbook first. And you can see inside this playbook, we have several tasks. I'll explain that playbook later in another example. Right now, we just simply run this playbook. So if you configured your inventory or host INI file already, you don't need to specify that file every time. In my case, I just use the temp file for the inventory configuration. So you can see here is that the playbook is actually running a group of tasks. It's not a simple or single task running. It executes different tasks together. So we create a library and create the same library again. The second time, there are errors, but the error does not prevent the rest of the executions. So we can also use the -vvv option to run the playbook so that you can get detailed information of what's going on there besides the task execution. And after everything has been done, you can see the overview of the task of, we have 4 tasks here, and there are some okay. So all of those tasks are okay status. And also we can run the IBM tasks with Ansible Tower. In example 3, it shows how to use Ansible Tower, which is provide a GUI to run IBM playbooks. So I'll give you an example again to run a same playbook we just executed. So this is the GUI for Red Hat Ansible Tower. So we log on to the GUI and it provides the dashboard of the overall status of your automation tasks. As you can see, we have recently used the templates and recent job runs. We go to the project first. The project actually configured where do you load your automation script or tasks. So here we have a Ansible for IBM customer demo project. So in this project, as you can see, we can specify a GitHub location. In this GitHub location, it contains different playbooks examples. So if we navigate to this example GitHub location, this is exactly the location we have put into the Ansible. And in this location, there are a lot of playbooks there. And also the collection is very important. This collection directory contains the requirements.yaml file, which tells the Ansible Tower, we are using IBM.power IBMI collections for this demo. This is very important because you don't need to install IBMI modules or IBMI collections onto Ansible Tower. You just need to specify this module, this collection here in the GitHub, so that Ansible Tower will drag the related modules to the Tower system and run the specific tasks. So this is very convenient, and it's treated like as code as infrastructure kind of thing. So we specify that information so that Ansible Tower will know what kind of Ansible collections will be downloaded to execute the task. Then we go to the templates. Templates is actually defines what type of the task will be run. So in the template, as you can see, we have inventory, which are the system information, endpoint information, and also we can choose which playbook to run. So this playbook actually is retrieved from the GitHub page. You can see we can take a look at the detailed information of this playbook. So this playbook is what we have just run from interactive command line. We create a library again, assert for the second library creation failure, and also do the delete of the library. And we monitor the message of CPF 2111 and delete the library at last. And then we go back to this template and we do the launch. So Ansible Tower will launch the task, and you can see the log and the messages will be retrieved from the GUI. And you don't need to manually run these tasks. Actually, Ansible Tower provide the scheduler functionality so that you can schedule your task jobs to run. for certain purpose. This is a little bit slow because the Ansible system is a very small system. But you can see we have different command line, different tasks executed. And if you double click on a specific task, you can see the detailed job logs. And we provide job log information as well for each module so that you can see if you want to know what is the failure here, you can go to the job log and see the detailed information. So here tells you that there is already an Ansible I library there, and we have different tasks that you can navigate. And at last, we can see that the library has been deleted successfully. So yeah, this is another demo. Okay, so the last part are some real customer use cases. As I mentioned, I have a lot of interlocks with different IBM customers during the development of Ansible support. The main purpose was to get their requirements and understand their use cases and so on. Here, I just selected 5 use cases, which I think you could find values from them. The first one is the fixed management. There are several customers who have the similar needs to improve their current fixed management process. This managing of PTFs and groups could be very complex in some cases, as I mentioned previously. Here are some typical questions and requirements. The customers want to timely know where the level of whether the level of the groups on their systems are current enough, especially for those security groups. Also, if they are behind some levels, they would like to automatically download the PTFs and groups. And of course, those downloaded PDF, zip file, or group images should be sent to target IBM systems to install. The last 2 requirements are more interesting, that the customers want to track the PTF and group status. Normally, they will use PTF group level to track whether they are current enough. However, in some cases, for example, if some PTFs in a group are removed, the PTF group level may show as not installed instead of a correct level. The requirement here is to see how many PTFs on the system belongs to a specific group. The last requirement is that the customers want to manage the PTFs and group in a more organized way to avoid the errors and improve the efficiency. So here are the building blocks of modules and roles we provided to support fixed management. Each one of them can be used separately for your automated fixed management tasks. You could go to the links provided here for examples of how to run them. Then let's go back to visit previous PTF management requirements. The first 3 requirements could be achieved by single modules or combination of modules in the playbook. For example, IBM Fixed Group Check module helps you to check the latest PTF group information provided by IBM. IBM Download Fix module can be used to download the PTFs and groups from IBM Fix Central to IBM, etc. In our use cases directory, you actually could find some examples of playbooks to put these modules together. We are, again, for this fixed management use case, we are still enhancing, doing the enhancement, but there is already a first version available there. But however, there are still 2 requirements that are not solved yet. So we will provide a new architecture here to drive the fixed management. So I call this, advanced fixed management. The idea here is that we create a fixed repository architecture here on IBM in your data center or in the cloud to help on fix management. The fix repository resides on IBM for now, and that it has two major parts. One part is PTF and image repository, which are several IFS directories to store the save file and the images of PTFs and groups. The other part is PTF and PTF group catalog, where the PTF and group information is recorded in. The catalog stores fixed information, for example, what PTF and groups are in the repository, what PTFs are in a group, etc. Right now, this architecture needs to be on IBM system. So different playbooks and modules are provided to manage this repository. With the modules and roles provided, the repository can download the fixes from IBM Fix Central and extract fixed information into catalog. The fixes in the repository are checked and examined on a regular basis so that the catalog knows which fix is not available in the repository anymore. And the fixes can be sent from repository to target IBM endpoint systems, and installation for those fixes can happen after sending. Also, compare function is provided to either compare fixes between repository and IBM Fix Central or between repository and target IBM endpoints. This is very high level of the architecture, and this is the, as I mentioned, the first version of this advanced fix management. We are keeping enhancement for this advanced fix management idea today for on-prem and future in the cloud. If you have more ideas or requirements, it is very welcomed. So with that, here's some detail about this advanced fix management architecture. Right now, the downloading of the fixes will take advantage of a send PTF order function for now, as of today. That is why we only support IBM as fix repository today. The catalog used to record the fix information consists of a few SQLite databases tables. The reason that we don't use DB2 for I in this case as catalog is that in the future, this repository may be, well, just maybe for now, on other platforms or even in the cloud storage. You could click the link provided here for more information. And right now, this link only contains several playbooks examples, as it is still doing the enhancement. But later we will update more instructions, and these fixed management stuffs will all be available in the coming soon. The second use case is security management. Security compliance checking is very important for you, and it will be more important when moving into cloud. The requirement here is straightforward, that certain security rules should be applied to the systems, and timely checking for compliance of systems values, user profiles, object authorities, networking, etc. are very critical. And if there is non-compliance happen, changing the values of security configurations could be an option. Also, some customers who already have the experience of Ansible, they asked us whether we could support like become function. So this function allows the playbooks to be running under different user profile, that the user authority only gets escalated when needed. The customer never wants to have a super user to run all the tasks all the time. Instead, only the task that requires higher authority needs to be running under the super user. Ansible has an architecture called Become plugin, but unfortunately, that Become plugin architecture cannot be used for IBM systems for technical reasons. However, we still provide our own way of Become support. So for most of our modules, we provide options for you to allow the user to input the username and password so that they could switch to a certain user for a certain task execution. So here gives our solutions for those two security requirements. We have modules for security checkings and changes, and also we have our own way of become function provided. There are several examples provided in our GitHub for security compliance checking. And we are going to add more stuffs in the future. For example, there is a CIS IBM security benchmark out there in the market for security compliance checking suggestions. And in the future, we may consider to create samples based on that benchmark suggestions in the future. And the next one is application deployment. These steps are quite common for different customers that they need to transfer save files of their applications to target IBM systems and do the restore. And they have their own existing script to run in order to configure the applications. So some of the installation and the configuration process may cost a lot of time because they are, long time running jobs, and also they need to clean up the environment for some, failures. And after the deployment, they also want to clean up some of the files and the libraries, etc. So this is from another use case. And there are existing IBM modules out there to help on these application deployment tasks. We have modules to do object transfer, object save and restore, and submitting jobs and checking the job status, etc. For those single tasks that you cannot find a mapping module, you also could leverage the IBM CL command or other command modules to complete the task. Most of the IBM tasks and jobs can be achieved by CLs. So we have a generic modules for you to use. And use case 4, this is not a BRMS example as we talked about previously, but this is also interesting. So this is actually a data backup solution. The task can all be achieved by our modules that customers want to do backup with save restore, send the save file over to other systems. But the interesting part is that they have a separate team to do backups, and this team does not have IBM deep skills. The team follows a long list of commands and do manual random every day via green screen previously. This causes two problems. So the first one is that having those non-IBM experienced administrators to log on to IBM green screen can be risky because operator may do some unexpected things by accident. And also, secondly, they need to consult IBM operation team for advice for some common errors. So putting these tasks into Playbook solve their problem. So the non-IBM operator will never log on to green screen anymore again. And also they are limited to certain tasks. And also some common error handling logic has been implemented and put into the Playbook as well. So common errors can be also solved by Ansible Playbooks. So this secures the customers from unexpected operations. So this part is interesting, and this is not the only case. So I actually met two customer cases for this similar implementations. The last one is continuous testing. This is actually our own example from the lab. Some of our test team wants to improve the quality of the testing. They want to do the testing and prepare the test environment, and they want to have the testing environment to be clean enough for functional testings. Thus, before the testing, they would like to provision a new testing system of IBM, and also that system should be pulled with the latest code, and also they need to have the latest dependencies and products installed on that testing machine. And after the testing has been done, the testing system should be deleted as cleanups. So what we had implemented, again, these things can all be achieved by existing modules of Ansible. Many of the modules, as you can see, are not only IBM modules, but some other modules in the market that can be leveraged by IBM PACE. And we also leverage some OpenStack module to do the IBM virtual machine deployment lifecycle management. And the point here is that we can extend the above continuous testing use case to CI/CD a little bit more. CI/CD, as we know, stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery. They are the backbone to support modern DevOps environment. Ansible does perfectly fit for CI/CD process. It interacts with version control solutions such as GitHub to check in and deliver the final code after a series of software lifecycle steps has been done. IBM customers can take advantages of Ansible to set up CI/CD process for both native application and open source application deployment lifecycle. And the continuous testing use case I mentioned in previous page can be extended to the process of different stages, except that you need to manually do the code changes. Many of your deployment and testing works and steps can be automated to facilitate your CI/CD process. From this chart, you can see the environment preparation, testing, and deployment can all be automated by Ansible. And actually, we already have a bunch of steps for you to plan for that automation. Here, I provide some playbook fragments to illustrate that Ansible for IBM support can perfectly help on your CI/CD implementation as well. Okay, that's all for the major content. After this session, the only takeaway is that if you are planning for your automation strategy for IBM, please make sure that you take Ansible into consideration. We have provided a lot of good stuff already there, and we will continue adding more things. Again, your inputs, your requirements are extremely important for us. And here are some resources for you. I believe the PDF will be sent out later so that you will get this presentation PDF version. Also have these resources. Any further questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Wang. Yes, there are a few questions that I didn't take during the last session, so I'll talk through those in just a moment. So as you can see, there's been quite a lot of interaction in the chat window, people sharing some information and also asking lots of questions and making some suggestions for further development in this area. So it certainly provoked a lot of thought. So thank you for covering that. Before I take the final few questions, I just wanted to tell everyone about the next session in this series. So the next session will be on the 11th of November, same time. And it will be Tim Rowe delivering the session on IBM Systems Management for People of Today. So hope you can join us on that, and I hope also that you can sign up for, if you haven't already, the Technical University that's running next week as a virtual event. I will post details of all of that along with the replay emails that I send out later on. Okay, on to the last few questions that have come in. I hope I haven't missed any in the interim, but let me just check. A question on running CL commands. What is the best way to specify a library list for the command execution? They say that they could use IBM_submit job module, but is there another way to do it directly in the module, like with the IBM CL command module?
So for library list, we haven't tested specific commands for library list, but if you want to add library list or edit library list, I believe you can directly use the well, okay. So I'll rephrase. So if you want to run your task under a specific library, the technical behind is that we actually initiate a local connection to run the specific job. So I believe your library list, if you want to change the library list, you actually want to execute your application follow that library list. So that library list normally is under the specific job. So in this case, you probably need to use the submit job module to do the execution. And this is actually a great suggestion to us, so that you know, some of the runtime configurations can be added into the submit job module for specific things.
As in pass in as a parameter almost.
Yeah. Well, I'll take this as a
Okay.
Good discussion point, at least.
Great. I will share the contents of the chat with you later on, so you'll have all of this. Thank you for that, Martin. Okay, the other one was advanced fix management. Will that also check for prerequisites and co-requisites?
Yeah, that is a great question, because we are suffering on that piece. We're trying to, but you know, IBM fix management, well, especially the requisite and co-related or other kind of different dependencies between PTFs are quite and we try to provide a function so that you could know that if there's dependencies, we can help you to download or install those dependencies as well. But right now we have a module called display fix, which actually you can which right now can only know the dependencies of the upper level during the load process. But however, we right now we do consider enhancing this kind of dependency relationship report or something. So we will have that enhanced.
Okay, watch this space. Is there any plan to allow for checking of a non-IBM iFix repository or repositories? For example, the compare of a Windows or Linux-based directory containing fix images downloaded in a month against either an endpoint system or to deploy to the endpoint system if needed, or against Fix Central.
So can you repeat the question again?
So this is saying, is there any plan to allow for checking of a non-IBM iFix repository or repositories? For example, if you have a Windows or Linux-based directory containing the fix images that you downloaded in a month,
okay.
Can you do that against an endpoint system or deploy it, or against Fix Central to determine if a fresh download is needed?
Yeah.
So it's still IBM iFixes, but you've stored it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think I understand. So the answer is that watch this space as well. We do right now, as of today, you need to have the repository on IBM because we are leveraging the send PDF order command or architecture to download the fixes from the IBM. However, we do have something undergoing that we want to separate. We want to separate the fixed repository from the downloading fix mechanism, which means that the download playbook or download solution should not be combined with the repository. The repository should be able to be on other type of storage or on the other type of operating system. It can be an NFS or cloud storage, or some locations of the file systems of other types. So we are this is this is something you can keep watch, and this is something we want to drive in next couple of months.
Great. I'm going to stop the recording there, but we can stay on for a couple of more minutes. There's 2 or 3 more questions that have popped up. So let me just thank everyone, and I'm going to stop the recording there. Hope you can join us next time.